What we're talking about next is combat in Guild Wars 2. Secrets of the Obscure. ArenaNet made the statement. They made the statement that theory crafters are going to be very, very busy, and that it's going to change it up. We're replacing elite specializations. That was some big shoes to fill. Some big shoes to fill indeed. Hard to actually replace that, because of course their goal was they want to be able to balance the game and, you know, continuously update skills and so on and iterate instead of just leaving things in the dust basically while they work on new elite specs. And this is their methodology for doing that. Moving away from elite specializations and towards other ways of shaking up the gameplay, which I think, let's be honest, elite specs are really, really awesome, and maybe we could eventually see something like an elite spec that does interact mechanically, or at least changes the mechanics in small ways. I think a great example might be a trait that changes how an ability works, you know, a bit like Devouring Darkness on Scepter, or Sandstorm Shroud on Scourge, stuff like that, you know, like Glacial Blow on Guardian. So you can have like small reworks and small traits that completely change abilities and modify what they do, but elite specializations essentially prevented ArenaNet from being able to balance the game in any kind of consistent way because they were full steam ahead on elite specializations. And a bit of clarity on that, by the way. One reason for this is because, of course, people who design skills, they're not just doing that, right? They're you know, like, they kind of are now, actually. That's one thing. They have CMC basically, like, hard at work in the balance mines, sorting the game out, but historically that's not been the case, right? They've had other responsibilities, including probably designing, like, NPC skills and so on, right? That obviously takes up a good amount of time when it comes to developing content. But anyway, that aside, interesting, you know, direction to go. Certainly, we've been seeing the fruits of that with all the balance patches and so on that have been developed, and how are they going to do it? How are we replacing it? We talked about how we're looking for ways to add meaningful combat choices besides adding new elite specializations. With core trait lines and 3 expansions worth of elite specializations, each profession already has access to tons of roles and playstyles. For Guild Wars 2 Secrets of the Obscure, we focus our efforts on bolstering and refining existing combat systems and removing long-standing limitations to put even more compelling build choices in your hands. So on launch, you no longer need to be an elite specialization to use that weapon. That's the TLDR. They got 2 paragraphs here, but that's basically what's happening. So that means, guys, all Guardians can use Axe, Sword, Offhand, and Longbow. All Revs can use Shield, Greatsword, and Shortbow. All Warriors can use Dagger, Pistol, Torch. All NGs, Mace, Sword, Hammer. All Rangers, Dagger, Hammer, Staff. All Thieves, Scepter, Rifle, Staff. All Elementalists, Sword, Warhorn, Hammer. All Mesmers, Axe, Dagger, Shield. And all Necromancers, Pistol, Torch, and Greatsword. And to be honest, this isn't elite specializations, but wow, this is going to open things up. This is actually going to get crazy. The amount of different builds and different setups that you can create out of this is absolutely insane. Like, maybe Power Harbinger has a little bit of potential now that you have Greatsword. Right? You know, Condi Reaper gets Torch offhand, so does Condi Harbinger, right? Like, what about, you know, a Weaver using Hammer, right? Or some kind of support build using Warhorn, right? Like, to share Might and Fury and so on. It's absolutely insane, all of the stuff that you could actually end up doing with this, right? You can have some absolutely disgusting Condi Rev builds now, because you can have Shortbow, Mace, Axe on every spec. Oh my god. That is juicy, right? There's so many things. Guardian finally has a good Condi main hand weapon, so you could be, you know, Condi Willbender's going to be happy about that. You could have Condi Dragon Hunter, right, being opened up as well. There's like so many things. And Ranger Staff has everything. Hammer is everywhere. So now in World vs. World, you can be a Hammer Soul Beast, sharing out your stances and charging into battle, right, and smashing things with the hammer, right, which is, you know, Ranger, the pet, obviously doesn't work super well in World vs. World. Well, don't have a pet. Play Soul Beast and share stances. And look, we haven't even seen this in-game yet. We haven't even seen the balance patches. Like, there is so much going on here. And so much potential for new ideas and new builds that can pop out of this. It is absolutely insane. It's entirely possible that this might end up being as impactful as elite specializations, potentially even more, especially when we talk about the next bit. Because, oh yeah, the next bit, they're not done yet. And this, I do like that they've done this as well. This is very important. Yes, new weapons are being added. And the fact that they're doing this is really interesting. They are confirming that they're willing to do stuff like this. Guardian Pistol main and offhand, Rev Scepter main hand, Warrior Staff, NG Shortbow, Mace Ranger, Axe Thief, Pistol Elementalist, Rifle Mesmer, Necromancer Sword. That means they're willing to do this. And I don't think this will be the last time they do. Hey, keep asking for it, Elementalists. You guys will get Longbow someday, okay? Like, you know, we'll get there in the end. And I think that adding new weapons is really important because the essence of an elite specialization is that you want to create a new playstyle, a new thing that a build can do. And so much of that is defined by what weapon you have. If a build doesn't have good weapon support, then realistically, it's kind of not a build, right? You need to have weapons that make sense with what you're trying to do. Otherwise, your build just kind of isn't cohesive. It doesn't fall together, right? I think this is one of the big things that's been holding Heal Warrior back, right? There's no weapon for Heal Warrior, and your class mechanic has zero support for that. But you add staff, now you can have a healing burst skill on your staff, and a whole bunch of abilities that support allies and give boons, right? And then you combo that with Warhorn in the offhand, and congrats, you've got a Heal Warrior, some kind of Paragon build. And I think they can do more than weapons here as well. I certainly expect to maybe see them adding new utility skills at some point. I expect to see maybe, this will be extreme, this will be maybe too far, will be a new core trait line. If they did that, that might actually just shake the game to its core and obliterate it, because of course, you might say, but wait, how is that possible? That's not an elite spec. Well, here's the thing about core trait lines. Core trait lines operate with every elite spec. So when you add a core trait line, it kind of affects more in a way. You don't get like a reworked class mechanic, but the interactions between those trait lines is absolutely insane, right? Because it has to work with every other trait line, every elite spec, every weapon, right? Can have an interaction with it, which can end up being extremely potent and really opening things up. I do think that this approach that ArenaNet has taken here is a really solid approach to kind of filling the gap left by elite specializations. And I think that we'll see this and we'll find this. We're even having a test of this very shortly, actually, so we'll be able to actually confirm our suspicions. I think that this has the potential to really make the game feel extremely different. And open up a huge amount of different ways to approach the game, and loads of new builds that are going to pop out of this, which is kind of what you're trying to do. That's what elite specs were for, is like making new builds, and this does that in an extremely good way. There's certainly some balance concerns, like removing limitations like this. I think it's impossible to predict what's going to be good because there's so much. It's actually insane. Like with most balance patches, you can kind of go like, oh yeah, this is going to be really good. Oh yeah, that's, you know, significantly worse now. With this, it's like, it is impossible for me to look at this and tell you what's going to be busted. It's going to be a case of everyone's going to zerg in during the beta test and just try everything. Like, try absolutely everything. And I think that is exciting. That is the essence of what ArenaNet is chasing here. And I think what we as players want too is like new things to discover. Because when you play a game for so long, it's like, oh, I guess I'll play the same build again. Like, oh, you know, I guess I'll pick the same trait because it's always correct because it's the best trait and I played this build for 1 year. Right? This is what we're looking for. We want it to be fresh. We want new stuff. We want new ideas and things that we don't know. I think there's a lot of enjoyment in not having the game solved, the game not being completely figured out and completely understood. And this is certainly going to deliver that. I'm really excited for these new weapons as well. This is going to be so cool to see what they actually end up coming up with. You know, Elementalists, they love a ranged weapon. Pistol, you know, you guys can have rifle, you know. Well, actually, no, you're not having rifle. We should give you guys greatsword or something. That would be pretty sick. Fiery greatsword, huh? You know? It's going to be pretty good. And I'm very curious, like, how often they're going to do this. Maybe even, like, every expansion they're going to add a similar feature like this. And they're not done yet either, okay? They are streamlining runes and relics down. So, here's the TLDR. Runes are going to give you stats, you know, loads of stats. And relics are basically the special bonus. So, runes have a special bonus like Scholar Rune, you know, 5% damage while you're over 90% health. Or Monk Rune, whenever you apply a boon, you get a healing modifier increase for a couple of seconds, stacking up to 10 times. So essentially, that bonus is being removed and added to its own special relic slot, right? Which I think is good, because it's going to kind of streamline the system down a little bit, and essentially prevent these weirds, or kind of steer users away from going, I'll use one of each rune. That will probably still happen, but I think highlighting that will kind of get players to engage with it a little bit more, I think. And also, it means that you're not, like, tethered to a bonus, right? So if you want a certain bonus, but the stats suck, right now, you probably won't go for it. Because if the stats suck, then the rune probably isn't that great overall. But now, you have this fascinating ability to say, you know what? I want to have my build do loads of damage, but I also want it to Condi cleanse at the same time with my shouts, with this Trooper rune, for example. You know? I want my rune to be a little bit more defensively statted, or give me some healing, or give me like a healing bonus, right? But I also want it to, you know, like reduce my damage in some way, right? There's like loads of different things that you can do there. You can combine very aggressive stats with a defensive bonus or defensive stats with a very aggressive bonus, right? And there's loads of different options here as well. And they're going to add new ones too, actually. One thing that I really missed with End of Dragons was exactly that there weren't any new runes, because runes are kind of exciting, right? Like new bonuses. You can certainly almost like design a build, or your playstyle will slightly be modified based off a rune. And I think they are trying to make them a bit more active as well. You can kind of see this demonstration they gave here, is that notice that the examples they give are the Trooper rune. So do something, right? When you use a shout, remove a Condi. Here, it's when you use a skill that has a cooldown, so not auto-attacking, or a resource cost, gain 1% strike damage for 6 seconds, stacking 5 times, and refreshing the durations of all stacks to 6 seconds. So in other words, it's rewarding you for actively playing the game. I think we're going to see a lot of stuff like when you use your heal skill, do this. When you use your elite skill, do this. When you dodge, do this, right? So active gameplay being attached to runes. Because I think runes, a lot of the times, they're very fire and forget. You just put a rune on and it says, oh yeah, you do a bunch of damage. And like the 6 bonus just kind of happens. But this, they're looking to kind of make it part of your gameplay. Again, the same thing they were looking for with the other changes here. They're trying to make your build choices really alter your playstyle and how you engage with the game, which I think sounds really, really good. The acquisition method is, again, very standard. So instance content, strike missions, reward tracks, achievements, crafting, you know, very standard. And you get a free one at launch too. The one thing that I'm thinking here, okay, what about legendary relics? Because we have legendary runes, but we don't have legendary relics. I wonder if you're going to get that automatically if you have legendary runes, or if they're going to be there on launch. Because you know what? First world problems, guys. If I have to buy relics for every single one of my build templates, I'm going to be sad. I've got full legendary in Guild Wars 2. I do not want to have full legendary except one relic slot, okay? That is not okay. That is unacceptable, in fact. That's going to drive me crazy. But we'll have to see what they actually do there. I do suspect there will be some kind of legendary relic system that might be tied to runes. It might be a new thing that you have to make. We'll see. We'll see what they actually do with that. But I actually do like this. I like this approach. I like this system. Because, again, there are just some times where you want the like, a really good example, right, is actually Thief runes right now. A lot of builds in Guild Wars 2 need extra precision. So Thief runes or Eagle runes are like a really good choice there. But here's the thing. You then kind of get tied in to having kind of slightly some awkward stats. On Thief rune, for example, you get condition damage. And on Eagle rune, you have this weird bonus where you get an execute. You do 10% more damage below 10% health, right? Which, again, is not always exactly what you'd want for your build. You might just want to have more damage in another way, right? Like a flat damage modifier, or you want to have, I don't know, whatever. It doesn't matter, like more anything. And what this rune system says, well, now you can kind of have both, right? You can get your precision there, and you can still have this aggressive bonus. So you have a bit more customization in that regard with how you can play the game. And yes, basically this is power creep. I'm not gonna lie, guys. We are power creeping the game, but listen, right now we've got builds doing like 45k DPS. We're past the point of no return with power creep, guys. Okay. Eventually we're just going to think that this is a vertical progression game. We'll have forgotten that this isn't a vertical progression game. Like, that's how wild this stuff is actually getting. It's getting pretty intense across the board. But I think it is good that they're going back and refining some of these systems, because that's one thing that, again, ArenaNet has failed to do. I think runes are a very notable example of this too, because runes originally, the original design philosophy of runes is that you'd kind of mix and match them. You might have 2 of one kind, 2 of another, and 2 of another, or 4 of one, then 2 of another, because like the bonuses were weighted in such a way that you could have this mix and match. It didn't really turn out on that, and ArenaNet kind of steered away from that and just made it very backloaded. But that was kind of weird. So it's like, well, why do you even have like this idea of having 6 runes then? What's the point? If you're always going to use 6 of the same rune, then why is it not just 1 item? And what they're doing now is they're basically saying, well, you're going to want to have 6 because you get more and more stats heavily backloaded. And because, of course, they want to fuel the economy by having loads of items, right? That's kind of like why they're not just like deleting runes or making runes into a slot on their own and just removing them entirely, because ultimately they want to have this kind of concept that fuels into the economy with these things. But yeah. That's how it is. Yeah, soon we will do 100k DPS. We absolutely will. It's fantastic stuff. But yeah, that's it. Satisfy the same itch of a new skill set. And we focus on making these weapons fit in with the existing trait lines. And play the beta. Enjoy. I have to say, I am impressed. Okay, like, we definitely kind of... This is one of the ideas that we did guess about, that they were going to unshackle the elite spec weapons. Like, there was obviously a lot of speculation about the combat system. And listen, I told you guys it wasn't an action key. People said, Teapot, the new combat feature is going to be another EMP. It's going to be Ice Brood Saga. The game is over. Omega Lol. Well, look at this. They actually kind of nailed it. They locked it in, guys. Ain't it? Ugh. Well done. It was good. It is indeed pretty cool stuff. It's fantastic. But anyway, I think that's actually going to kind of sort out this summary here. Oh, I guess I should actually mention that before someone says, but what about weird weapons like, Hammer on Untamed? Yeah, they fixed that. And funny enough, you can actually see some of the stuff in the game. Check this out. So if we go over here to weapon skills, look at this, guys. You can already see in the game the Weaver, right? Weaver hammer abilities. So what it seems to be is that you actually summon 2 orbs for a little bit of a duration, depending on what attunement you're in, of course. On Weaver. So you will actually have access to all of these kind of weird gimmicky abilities, basically, that exist on certain weapons, like Untamed Hammer, Hollowsmith Sword, all that kind of stuff will have some kind of interaction in such a way that will basically make sense when you're playing a specific elite specialization, right? That kind of stuff. One thing that is notably missing here is, are they going to bring a new weapon to the table? Right? I can see it. I think I would love it if they actually brought the underwater weapons on land. And I think partially because there are some really cool legendary weapons like Kraken, who I think is actually really cool, little snakes and stuff. And what are the other underwater weapons? Like there's some pretty cool stuff. They could bring spear, they could bring spear gun, they could bring the trident. I think that could be interesting if you could have access to those on land and they function in a slightly different way. I think people want that axe. People want 2-handed axe. Yeah, they love it. They want it. I think it'd be really interesting if you actually did introduce some kind of new weapons, like completely new weapons to the game as well. Because ultimately, the issue with that is they'd have to make a lot of weapon skins. That would actually probably massively increase their workload if they added completely new weapons to the game. So they may not go in that direction. Because here's the thing. Adding a new weapon to Guild Wars 2 is cosmetic. So, for example, I think if they were going to add Great Axe, it would be a hammer skin, right? And they'd give hammer to something, right? And then congratulations, you've now got your Great Axe. And the reason for that is because the way the Guild Wars 2 combat system works, there is no reason for a weapon to have to be a certain way. We have a ranged greatsword in this game, a ranged dagger, and we have melee staves, right? Like that you can use, right? Like there's anything. We have a melee pistol, right, as well. Like there's all sorts of like slightly unusual combinations that exist in the game that you might not necessarily... Yeah, we have a ranged hammer, right, like on Revenant, that you might not necessarily expect. So they don't need to add new weapons because they can just take old ones, maybe add new skins so you can roleplay as an axe user, and then just give you an existing weapon because it doesn't matter. There's no tie between functionality and the weapon itself in Guild Wars, so they can do whatever they want, and we've seen this. They're very creative with what they do. Yeah. They could, I guess the only thing they couldn't do would be something like a throwing spear, because there's no weapon that works like that in the game, like with a throwing there's no like throwing animation in the game. So they'd have to probably make a new thing for that. If they want to bring back, yeah, Guild Wars 1 Paragon or something like that. Who knows, maybe in the future. But anyway, that's it. I think this is actually very good. Certainly one of the systems and one of the parts of the expansion that were pretty, up in the air, right? We weren't really sure about it, and definitely a concern that, we weren't going to have that really big selling point. Like, elite specs are a huge selling point for the game. Obviously, a really hard thing to follow up, and I think ArenaNet took that seriously. You can kind of see that they've really deliberately tried to go all out, getting the runes in there, teasing that they're adding new weapons to professions. They're breaking up everything. They're going berserk with these big balance patches and the Weaponmaster Training there as well. Anyway, to kind of wrap this up, very exciting stuff here for Guild Wars 2, Secrets of the Obscure. I cannot wait to get my hands on this. I'll be testing around a lot, I think, this week. And honestly, I hope that we could actually see some, more stuff like this in the future. I think if they're able to do this relatively frequently, because bear in mind, the turnaround on this expansion is very fast. I think we could be seeing big shakeups to the combat system with new weapons, new trait lines, new skills, new abilities, reworks, and so on. New systems, like new runes, new sigils. Hey, maybe they'll take a swing at sigils next, right? Because they're pretty boring, right? After they're done with runes, right? We could see this very frequently. I think as honestly, as insane as it sounds, I think it's quite likely that the new approach here with this different style of combat update might end up making the game more dynamic and creating more playstyles and more interesting things to try out and experiment with than elite specializations. Particularly, and I think it is worth noting though, particularly as we actually have every elite spec as a foundation. It's almost like these two systems have some very good synergy, actually, together. The elite specs will kind of enable this new combat update system to flourish and do really well. But very interesting. Very, very, very interesting indeed. I'm very curious what everyone thinks about this. This is certainly the biggest topic, the most controversial topic, I would say, actually, when it comes to the expansion. And, well, get ready for the absolute horror that is going to be Axe Shield Barrage in PvP. In fact, that's kind of one of my only concerns about this. I think it's entirely possible that there are some incredibly disgusting builds in PvP and world versus world, like particularly roaming, that will pop up from this. And I think that might massively damage the balance in those game modes, but we'll see. Maybe CMC can pull off a miracle and make it happen, but yeah. Good luck, buddy. It's gonna be tough, right? CMC is gonna be working overtime. He's gonna be there, sitting at his computer, sweating away, right? Like, trying to somehow balance this absolute fiesta of a video game. And also, check out this, Cryptid. Look at him. Look at him go. He's being battled. Not very big, though, is he? Being battled by this Guardian, I think. Potentially. Very exciting. Yeah. But anyway, that's going to wrap things up for me. And I guess that's actually the end of my full review of the entire information about the expansion. I'll, of course, be doing the same thing when we get any more additional news, any more live streams, any more information from ArenaNet. And, of course, I'll keep my eye out as well from any other kind of sources, like online, the journalism stuff, too. Very exciting. Be sure to let me know what you think. Okay, leave a comment, like the video, subscribe, watch all the other videos, and definitely buy the game using my referral link, guys. Link is in the description, probably in a pinned comment as well. Give me free money. I love free money, and I can have it thanks to Guild Wars 2. Secrets of the Obscure. This is why it's my favorite expansion and my favorite video game. Alright, that's it. Thanks for watching, gamers. I'm out.